Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. We are glad that our Form 5 students and our Form 5 parents and some outside parents and students are joining us this evening to talk about our favourite subject, which is our Ktj Sixth Form. So my name is Emma Davidson, and I am the head of Sixth Form here at Ktj, and I'm joined by Miss Susan. Miss Susan?
And my name is Susan Renaud, and I am the Sixth Form and Fifth Form Higher Education Counselor, and I give advice on universities, primarily in the US, but pretty much also the rest of the world, and a little bit of UK.
Okay, great, thank you. So we're going to be talking about A-levels in Ktj and how that feeds into your post-A-level plans, wherever they may be. So please do type your questions in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. If it's something about the logistics of the registration process, our registrar, Miss Jane, is also in the back studio and she'll be sending information out as well. All right, so welcome everybody, let's begin. Okay, so obviously a big part of Ktj is we think very carefully about what kind of environment and culture we have for our students, and what we want our students to be like. And fundamentally, we want them to be happy. We want them to be healthy. That's sort of physically, emotionally, socially. And we also want them, of course, to be successful in whatever they set their goals to be. Those goals may be something to do with academic goals in terms of their excellence. Of course, Ktj is known for its academic excellence, but also university application support. Miss Susan's doing amazing work in terms of getting our students to go to other countries than the UK, and just making sure that students go to the places that best suit them. And a huge part of Ktj is our enrichment program. And that's because we believe very firmly that the whole holistic development of the student is so important. We are not an exam factory. We look at way more of a student and their development in their well-being. So why have we got A-levels at Ktj? Well, obviously, naturally, they follow on from the IGCSE. Most of our A-levels are with the Cambridge Exam Board. Our maths, we use Pearson EdXL, and for our extended project qualification, we use AQA. All of those are world-renowned. A-levels are great because they open the door to any post A-level program that you want to access because they're so well known around the world. The thing about A-levels is that they have a depth of academic rigor and focus that maybe other programs don't have. So you tend to pick, say, 3 or 4 A-levels, and you may drop one of your A-levels later on, the fourth one later on, maybe during A-levels or after AS. So you're specializing quite early on with A-levels, but we also encourage our students to do extended project qualifications, and an increasing number of students are doing those. So the extended project qualification is a 5,000-word essay or an artifact where you build something. And universities love them because they develop the skills that you need at university. So all universities like EPQs, but some of them like them so much that if you have one and you have an A or an A star, they will lower your university offer requirement, maybe from AAA to AAB. If you slightly miss your offer, and if you've got a good grade in your EPQ, then that gives us great ammunition to talk to them to still let you in the university. Okay, so that's the program that we have. Obviously, the results are incredibly important to us at Ktj, and you can see that the percentage of students who get A star to B is extremely high. 61% of them get A stars of the entries that we have. And we're especially proud of the fact that our Ktj Scholars, 98% of their exam entries were A star to A. So our scholars are extremely successful academically. I'm sure we'll have some questions on scholarships later. So you can see how Ktj compares with other schools around the world. 2020, 2021, of course, were very successful years, and that's had a knock-on effect on university applications as well. But you can see that Ktj consistently way outperforms the average around the world. And certainly in terms of the value added that Ktj has, we are ranked very highly as well in terms of what we add value to our students academically. So I just want to talk a little bit about what happens with our higher education program. So as you know, we've got 3 terms in Ktj. So in the lower 6, the students have a personal tutor, and their role really is to do things like focus on study skills. One of the things we've implemented this year is just kind of personal management skills as well, so that, you know, I want all of our students to leave Ktj being able to manage their time well, have good email etiquette, to, you know, to use their calendars well, and to just really be professional in the way that they use electronic devices and their communication. They also focus on setting goals and tracking their goals and reflecting on how they're doing and how they need to improve. And we also have a lot of work on the PSHE goals, so things like good mental health, anti-bullying, upstanding, things like that. In the second term, we do CVs and covering letters. Now that the pandemic's hopefully on the wane, we're going to get students doing work experience placements, so it's important they have a CV now. In fact, we start that next week, and on Monday we have someone from Willis Towers Watson's, one of the C-suite recruiters, coming to talk about what they look for in a CV, and then the students will be making their own CVs. They'll be reviewing their goals, and all the time we'll be having university talks, either on their admissions or just on academic subjects as well. In the third term, of course, a lot of our lower 6 students have their AS exams, so we focus on stress management techniques, and then they'll begin to look at their personal statements. Again, we're beginning that on Tuesday, and their university applications and what's going to be a good fit for them. And Miss Susan will be talking about that in a little while. So when the students then get to their upper 6, the first term of the upper 6 is just pretty much setting goals, reviewing them academically, socially, and then just university applications. So the whole of the first term is just devoted to making sure everybody's got their applications done well and they're all completed on time. And then in the second term, we move on to our transition to university skills. So they begin that program on Tuesday. So they're going to be doing some sewing. Someone's going to be teaching them how to sew a button. Actually, also things like how you put a quilt cover, how you put a quilt inside a quilt cover, because I couldn't do that when I went to university. They're doing a first aid course. They're doing banking and finance, budgeting. Do they really know how much money they're going to spend when they get to university? And they've also got cooking lessons as well. And just general things like settling in and Freshers Week and alcohol and drugs, and just kind of trying to get them ready for university. There'll also be something on culture shock. And then in the third term, again, it's very much dominated by the exams. So again, we revisit the exam techniques and stress management. So where do our students go? Well, many of our students go to the UK, an increasing number of them don't. Miss Susan will talk about that. There are lots of universities that have 100% offer rate for Ktj students, particularly in things like accounting and finance, law, actuarial science, economics, computer science. Computer science, law are particularly competitive at the moment. So here are some of the destinations that our students tend to go to. These are some of the ones that they went to in 2021. Manchester and Warwick remain 2 of our main universities, along with UCL, and a high number of applications for LSE as well. So I'm going to pass over now to Miss Susan, and she will talk to you about the US ones.
So many of the Ktj students, as Miss Emma said, also choose to look at the United States, some in Canada. This year we had 3 in the Netherlands, 3 applied to Hong Kong. Several students are still looking at Japan. Australia, there's a small handful of students looking at Australia. Their deadlines are later. But in the US, this is kind of the bulk of where we've had students go within the last few years. What I think is important when I'm at, myself as a counselor is supporting non-Ucas applications, it's really important for me to remember, for me to have students remember, and for them to remind their parents that it's quite a balancing act. So students want information about universities outside of the UK, And there are over 25,000 universities in the world. So they need some help narrowing down the list and what they can focus on and what's reasonable while they continue to do their coursework, while they continue to make their applications to the UK and look at other countries in the world. So I see it's important in my role as higher education counselor is to help them manage and balance what do they want, what is reasonable, how can they stay focused on their classes and make really good applications so that they feel that sense of success, sense of power, and have more choices than they imagined possible. In looking at that balancing act, I like to look at two different concepts. One is a good match, and the other is a good fit. And this pertains quite a bit to the United States, which is very different than the UK in its approach to applications, which tends to be very course focused. You apply for a course at a university, whereas in the United States, you apply to the university, and it's understood that for the first year, all students can change their major multiple times, and U.S. universities expect that about 90% of students will change their major in the first year. So having a good match, making sure the numbers line up, making sure students are ready to work really hard in competitive curriculums. And I know KTJ offers a very competitive course load with students working hard, having very good study habits. Is that something they want to continue in university? Is their essay, can they write towards what the essay wants? And does it fit with the ethos of the university and other criterion like, are they involved in extracurricular activities? Are they doing leadership? Are they doing community service? I know most recently in the United States, a big trend in university admissions has been towards students whose families, in their family, they are first generation university attendees. So universities like to have this as a part of their cachet to sell to the public. They also are looking for not having an excess of students from specific countries because they want to have that ethnic diversity that matches what's happening in the rest of the world. So all of these things are important in understanding whether or not the university is a good match, numbers-wise and background-wise, for who the student is. Then there's the idea of good fit. And not all universities are good matches for every single student. An example, I was talking to a student who wanted to apply to engineering and was primarily looking at technical schools. Then this student threw in a couple schools that would be known as liberal arts. And these are schools, universities that also want students to take some English classes, take some social science classes, maybe take some art classes. And so I was talking to this student because they had to write an essay about a book they've read. And the student looked at me with a bit of shock and said, well, I haven't really read any novels for fun since about Form 4 or Form 5. And so my question was, why are you applying to this university if you're going to have to read novels? It's not a good fit. So I help work with students because I know a fair number of these universities. I visited their campuses. I've talked to the admissions people. So I understand what the universities are looking for and ask students to think about, and we discuss, this university wants people who do things, not necessarily the theoretically oriented people. Whereas if you're more of a theory person, then this is a better fit of university for you. So good fit has to work with match to make sure it's exactly the right place for students to be applying to and to see themselves going to in the future. At KTJ, as a whole sixth form team, we work really hard to help students balance their academic life, balance their social life, and balance their plans for their future at university and their careers. In doing this, I have taken on a mentor group, and mine is focused primarily on students who are applying mostly to the United States. They will have some UK applications, and I know enough about that, and I consult with Miss Emma regularly. But mine is focused on the United States, having them understand more about the culture of universities, the culture of the United States, and what things they need to be ready to talk about. So my mentor tutor group is for US students primarily. I also offer individual counseling sessions. Even though I'm part-time, I'm available throughout the entire week to students. Every Thursday, I send a list where they can sign up for times when I'm on campus on Monday, and then through Tuesday through Saturday. I have half-an-hour appointments that fit with the student's schedule. So I'm happy to meet with them to talk about things like, where do they want to live? Have they ever experienced winter before? If they haven't, and if they don't like the cold, going to the northern latitudes in the United States might not be the best choice. Things like, do they want to live in urban areas or more rural, quiet areas? Do they want a city campus? Do they want a closed-in campus? All of those things we talk about in individual counseling sessions, as well as trying to narrow down what it is they think they want to study in the US, because the UK, they're applying for a specific course, but again, US is specific university. I'm leading workshops on doing the US personal statement. That's the essay students need to write. It's 650 words, very different than the UCAS personal statement. So I have dedicated 4 lunch periods in March on Tuesdays when all of the US applicants will be working with me to start their drafts on the US personal statement so that we can write that so it meets what US universities want. We've also developed a policy limiting the number of applications that students can make, and it's 10 systems or universities, because we believe that students need to make quality applications, not quantity. They cannot just throw a dart at a map and say, I want to apply to this university and this university. They need to do the research about those universities, understand who they are and how they will fit into the university, because this needs to be represented on their university applications. So we want them to make good, smart choices and have more offers than they know what to do with from universities, because they know which universities are the best places for them. To this end, we are strongly recommending that they limit the number of DREAM and REACH universities that they apply to in the United States. A DREAM university is one of those that has a 10% or less acceptance rate, and the criterion for acceptance change on a regular basis and are not always clearly articulated. So I want students to know and understand that applying to a DREAM, it is in fact just a DREAM, and they might not get in. A REACH university has 25% or less acceptance rate. And what's important about both of these categories of universities is not only how competitive they are, but also the extra essay and writing requirements that students need to do while they're working on their UCAS applications, while they're working on their A-level coursework, and while they're working on their other applications and things they need to do in their daily life. So again, it's all about keeping that balance. I also have started to offer to students who are planning to apply to both UCAS and US universities or Canadian universities that over the coming summer holidays, I will work with them on their essays, because I think it's to their great advantage that they get as much writing done as possible before school starts again, because we really, really want them to focus on their classes, on being a part of the KTJ community, and not spending all of their time into the wee hours of the night writing essays so they're not good enough to be able to cope with life the next day. Okay, Miss Emma, back to you.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so one of the things that I in particular love about KTJ, and one of the things I think is very special about it, is the academic enrichment program that we have. So it's actually very diverse, and it entails having different fairs, such as medics fairs, careers fairs, lots and lots of talks, events with the Oxford and Cambridge Society. We'll talk about those in a minute. And doing lots of outreach and charity work. So you can see that some of the enrichment that we have is actually super curriculum enrichment, basically anchored into an academic focus. So we have certain ECAs or clubs that are just for the sixth formers. For example, admissions test prep. So if you go to some of the top universities like Oxbridge and Imperial, you'll need to do an admissions test. Lawyers, medics, they also have an admissions test. We have sessions at lunchtime or after school specifically for those tests. We have a law club called the Law Society. We have a medics club, something for the Oxbridge applications, and we now have a new one, which is the Thinkers' Ideas, which is about philosophy and ethics. There are lots of other clubs that are kind of school-wide as well. forensics, which KTJ is very successful at, but has stopped for a couple of years because of the pandemic. Model United Nations, the debate union is huge in KTJ. We have an economics and finance club, which is very active, and STEM and coding clubs as well. Particularly the coding club lately has been very, very popular. So some of the talks that we have, basically we invite anybody that myself and the other deputy, Mr. Disney, meet. We get them to come in and talk. As we speak at the moment, we have some students in our lovely art library listening to Malik Ali, who is the founder of BFM. There's just about 40 of them over there. They're having their curry puffs of Milo and listening to him about the media landscape in Malaysia and being an entrepreneur. So it's a kind of example of speakers that we have. We also have alumni come in and speak to us. On Monday, we had an ex-KTJ student talk to the lower six and the upper six about how you apply for internships when you're at university. Basically, get your CV ready now, hit the ground running when you get to university. We also have outside organizations. For example, we recently had some students attending the Future of Healthcare International Summit, which was a global summit. And one of our students was selected to interview the panel as well. So that was really, really exciting to watch. Very diverse and very fascinating conference that they had. We partner with the Oxford and Cambridge Society for their talks. So some of our students get to ask questions. The famous one was our old head girl asking Kyrie about when are the Malaysian students going to get their vaccinations. And before they went to university, and 3 days later, Kyrie made an announcement that students could be vaccinated before they left. So that was really great that they get that kind of exposure. We also have links with Kumas and OUMC, and in non-pandemic days, they've come in and run workshops for us. And in fact, we've hosted their workshops for the Negri-Sembilan area. We also have a lot of our students enter the Oxford and Cambridge Society's academic exploration competition. We've had some success in that as well. And that's great. Really, it's just that kind of academic depth that they really need to show on their university applications. So we also go out and we do lots of visits. They enter competitions, particularly the one at the top here. You can see that's the Economic and Finance Club entering a competition. And the one at the bottom you can see is our lovely ARC. That was a lady giving a talk about LinkedIn profiles. How do you create your LinkedIn profile and how do you network a room? So at the moment, we're back to using the ARC, but we can't get the beanbags out and everybody sitting together in that way at the minute because we're still socially distancing, but we're inching closer and closer to getting back to normal. So I mentioned earlier, we have a suite of Oxbridge events. So the debating forum just had its 11th year. And we had lots of KTJ teams were entered in that. We also have an engineering workshop, which stopped for a couple of years because of the pandemic. It's very much hands-on. They build something. But we just arranged that in the third term, we will be doing it. So there'll be some KTJ students constructing something. I can't say what in case any of them find out. So they basically get a box of kits. They get very precise instructions, rather like an engineering tender. And they have to build something within a time frame. And it involves mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, coding. And then they are tested in some way. They're told what the testing is. Normally, it's a multi-school teams. We get lots of students and we mix them. But because we can't mix with other schools at the moment, we'll be doing one. And there's another big school in KL that will be doing the same task. And then we'll compare what we've done. We also have a moot, which is a mock law debate. And the KTJ Law Society loves the moot. We had 24 mooters in 3 teams this year. And they prep for about 5 weeks for the moot. And it's a very intense day where they go through 2 rounds of hearings. Okay, we also really encourage our students to develop their leadership skills. And one of the lovely things about KTJ is the way that the seniors look after the juniors, this idea of mentoring and taking care of each other. And actually, I mean, the speaker coming in on Monday is a good example of how that philosophy and that culture continues even when students leave KTJ. There is a diaspora of KTJers looking after each other, and I think that's really special. So they could be, obviously the prefect leadership team is very important in KTJ. We also have house leaders. We also have leaders of the ECA. So all the clubs and ECAs we have in KTJ are led by students, and we try to delegate the management and the development of those clubs to the students as much as possible. We obviously have teachers mentoring them, but we really want to develop all of those leadership skills of our students. We have, in fact, Jane and I were just adding it up. We're back to 90 clubs and societies for different activities. And obviously, because of this gorgeous campus that we have here, we have the space to do a lot of these outdoor ones. And because students are boarding, it means they've got the time to do these things. There are 2 different slots after school where you can do things. You can do things on a Saturday afternoon. This Saturday, so they finish lessons at 1 o'clock, they've got lunch, and then they've got house drama. So each house will be given some instructions, and they're going to spend the afternoon practicing their drama. And then in the evening, they'll be acting out. Each house will act out their little skit in a competition. On Sunday, we're starting kayaking because we have a beautiful lake here. With otters. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll see that we have a really, really lovely family of otters that Mr. Nebbit has caught pictures of. So we have a beautiful lake, and we are now starting kayaking. So the big advantage of boarding is that you can just do all of these things because you've got lots and lots of time. So community services is a huge part of KTJ, given our values of integrity, empathy, and mutual respect. We support a local soup kitchen in Mantin and also the Mahiba Food Bank. We send them food. There's a lot of collections that we do for them. There's a little school called Little Flower, a refugee school. Pre-pandemic, we were doing a lot of work with them. We've raised funds throughout the pandemic. Our Leo Interact clubs are very busy. And you see pictures here of the Be Brave, Go Bold campaign where everybody, including the principals, shaved their heads for charity. And you can see students in a lovely kitchen here, massive food tech rooms, and they're preparing vegetables here on a Sunday for the food bank. And that's pre-pandemic, of course, because no face masks. So I mentioned earlier that in the lower 6th, they'll start looking at their CVs. We'll also have a careers fair for them as well, and we help students with their placements. If the placements are back up and running, obviously we'll only do that if it's safe to do so with the pandemic. One thing I really hope is going to come back is the Outward Bound School. It used to take place at the end of the lower 6th, right after speech day, and it's a week in Lumut, Outward Bound School. And our head boy described it as saying, I enjoyed it, but I don't want to do it again. And I think that really sums it up quite well. It's a lot of fun. They learn to kayak, they learn to whale, which is not killing whales. It's in a big sailing boat, sailing and rowing boat, and they camp, and they have to cook their own food and start their own campfires, and they're in tents. And it's just a lot of fun. But we have to wait till the pandemic's over before we can do that. Okay, so here are some useful links. I'm sure we'll be sharing the slides. You'll be able to see these on YouTube as well, but you can see that we've got some videos. There's a new interview with Miss Susan and interviews with other students. As ever, I think if you want to find out what KTJ is really like, I think listening to some of the interviews of the students is really good. I know we were just talking earlier, they've done one on boarding as well. The student experience absolutely anchors everything we do here. So I think a good idea to find out what KTJ is like actually is to just come have a look at the school and to meet some students, to talk to students, and to listen to some of the webinars that our students have been doing. Okay, and there's some links here that I'm sure Miss Jane will be sharing. There's her email address there as well, and she'll be sharing, I'm sure, in the chat the application form for scholarships as well. Okay, so I think that's the end of our presentation. Do we have any questions in the chat at the moment? No questions? I'm going to stop sharing my slides, I think. Let me go back to the chat. We don't have any questions, I think, at the moment.
So I know, Emma, that you had on the last slide that if they want to get more information from us individually or personally, they can contact us, and they should be able to. Where can they find our email addresses?
Jane, could you pop our email addresses in the chat for everybody? So Jane will do that. When students apply, I like to talk to all of the students and all of their parents. And one of the reasons I like to do that is I like to make sure that the choices of A-levels that they're making are, as Susan was saying, a good fit. It has to be a good fit for you. It has to be manageable. We have so many things to do in Ktj, so many activities you can join, so many leadership things that we really want to make sure that students have time to do that. They're not robotic exam machines. And in fact, universities don't want them to get 5 A stars. They're actually interested, they make offers based on 3 A stars. So that's the important thing, to focus on doing 3 A stars really, really well and to develop all those other skills that you need. So we have a question about what are the A levels. So I would say our most popular A level is maths, and a lot will do further maths as well. Then chemistry, physics, bio also popular. Economics is very popular. So out of 120 in the upper 6, about 80 of them will do economics. History, geography, English literature are also very popular ones. We now offer computer science as well, and we've just added drama back into the A-level profile, and you can do accounting as well. I think I've got, art and music. We've also got art and music. Many of our students are science stream, but an increasing number are humanities as well. And quite often there is a mix of them. There's a famous medic now in Bristol who did chemistry, physics, maths, and history. And he strongly argued that medics should always study history. Okay, anthropology. That's a great question. Anthropology is one of those really interesting subjects that is becoming increasingly popular, and sometimes matched with law and sometimes not. So anthropology doesn't really have specific things that you must do. I would say that essay writing and reading subjects are very good. So anything from the humanities, like particularly history, literature, geography, and like a lot of things, maths is always very useful. So history, geography, literature, maths, I would say any of those would be good. Yeah, okay. I noticed a focus on law and engineering. Yeah, I would say that engineering and economics were really, really popular. And what we've noticed in the last 2 years is a lot of those engineering students have switched to computer science. So computer science now is almost as big, if not bigger, as the engineering side. Law is big. I mean, we just did the law ECA this evening, and it's got about 20 plus members, about 22 members at the moment. Now, some of those won't end up picking law at university, which is one of the great reasons why we have these, because some of the students spend every Friday afternoon in the law ECA, and we do lots of law activities, or they do the moot and they have to read these law papers and these case papers, and then they think, oh my God, I don't want to do this for 3 years. So a lot of these clubs are great because students learn what they don't want to do, which is just as helpful as learning what you do want to do. So it's sometimes eliminating them. Yes, so economics is also popular, and finance. And the other one that's increasing along with anthropology at the moment is sociology. Not sociology, I apologize, psychology. Psychology is the other one that's increasingly popular. Is the A-level Ktj open for, it's not, unfortunately, so it's boarding. And the reason why is because if you come to the school sort of after school, after 3:30, you will see that that's when all this very special development happens. That's when they're in these clubs like STEM and the Law ECA. That's when once a week they're doing the inter-house activities. And the other thing, and the leadership opportunities, it's hard to be a leader if you're not there a lot of the time. And the other thing really is when they're doing their prep, their homework and their revision in the evenings, having somebody in the room next to you who is brilliant at maths. There will always be somebody in your house, in your boarding house, who's really good at physics or maths or whatever you're struggling in. And in fact, we have chemistry and maths and physics ambassadors, where students specifically have times when others can knock on their door and say, hey, I can't do this, can you explain it to me? And it's just having that support when you study that's really, really important. And of course, remember, the house staff are teachers as well. So sometimes you're struggling with maths, but your house parent is a maths teacher as well. So you can just go ask your house parent who's on duty to help you. What is the acceptance rate? What is the acceptance rate for Ktj? I think if you mean for Ktj, I would say Jane would know. I think maybe Jane should type that. I mean, at the sixth form level, it's based on your grades. It gets quite competitive, so it's based on your grades. How will Brexit affect? How will Brexit affect job placements in the UK, assuming my child? Yeah, so Brexit's an interesting one because we thought there would be a big drop in European applicants. What we saw last year that was far bigger than the Brexit effect was three things. One was that at the start of the pandemic, the Chinese students stopped applying to the UK. This year, they're back and in huge numbers as well. So that makes UK applications very competitive. The other factor was that because of the first year of the pandemic, there were the teacher assessed grades. So many students made it into top universities when they probably in the exams would have got a lower grade. So universities like LSE, UCL, they rolled over students to the next year. And then the next year became very competitive. So a lot of students who in the past thought, oh, I'm going to get into a top university, didn't. So they've rolled over into the next year. So it's like this ripple effect that the pandemic caused because of those teacher assessed grades. And the third factor that's been huge is that for the next 10 years, we have the repercussions of a baby boom in England. So there are record numbers of 18-year-olds working their way through the university system for the next 10 years. So those effects actually are bigger than Brexit. But yes, we did think Brexit would be quite big, but I think not so much now. Okay, EPQ. I love EPQs because they're very self-directed. I met a student today. I supervise her, and we've had maybe 3 or 4 meetings. She's narrowing down her topic. We think we've got it almost, and then she's going to go away and do her research herself. They're very hands-off. They're very student-directed and driven. So if you're not motivated, you're not organized, you're going to struggle with an EPQ. That's university, right? That's why universities like them. And you learn lots of skills about researching and referencing and how you write academically, because a lot of students can't have academic tone in their writing. And I like them because they really help with your university application to help you stand out. They enable you to explore an area of academic interest. So, for example, you might be interested in data science, or you think you are. So if you do an EPQ related to data science, and after doing lots of research and writing a 5,000-word essay, if you didn't enjoy certain things that you had to read, then and you thought it was all a bit of a chore, then definitely you shouldn't be doing data science at university. And the other thing I like about them is that you can sort of prioritize where you spend your time. So there are certain pinch points when students are really busy. One of them is the first term in the upper six. And Miss Susan was talking earlier about this balance, and she very kindly gives up her summer holiday to work with the students on their American applications. And to be honest, we do that with the UK ones too, so that when they get back to school in September, they can focus. And some of them will have exams October, November. May, June is the big exam sitting. So there are these big pinch points when students are very busy. With an EPQ, because you decide when you're going to submit it and when you're doing your research, you can really spread your workload. So it's a great qualification that you can fit in around the other things that you're doing. Let me see, 1 minute. Is physics a prerequisite for computer science? It's not. Maths is more important, but it's really, really advisable. It makes sense to do physics, maths, further maths, physics. They're really good for computer science. It's not necessary at all to do computer science A level, to do computer science at university, but you really need to be doing lots of coding by yourself, entering coding competitions, developing apps, building websites, all those kind of things doing yourself. Yes, yep, trial results. You can apply based on your trial results and your predicted grades. There are minimum requirements, so we hope that you make the predicted grades that you had. So the offers are conditional. What are the scholarship requirements for current Form 5 students? Okay, so we're just talking about this actually. I mean, one thing that's great this time is that the Form 5 internal applicants and the external ones have the same application deadline, which is the 1st of April. So you don't need to fill in the form on Open Apply if you're an internal one, but you do need to fill in the scholarship application form, and it includes an essay on why you should be a Ktj Scholar. So Ktj Scholars are known at the top universities, particularly in the UK. So being a scholar, no matter what the monetary amount is, it means you've kind of been vetted. So we pick our scholars very, very carefully. And you could see by that, the data I showed you about the 98% A star to A, academic rigor and getting top grades is important for the scholarship application. But that letter as to why you want to be a scholar is hugely important. We want our scholars to really contribute to our community and really buy into our ethos. We're a school that does live by its values. They're very important to us, and we really try to get that from the students as well. So there is an interview where we talk about the letter that they wrote. And then this year we introduced for the first time an all-day sort of sixth form experience where you meet current students and scholars and you do certain activities. So it's a bit more like a scholarship interview at a major corporation. So it's kind of a multi-stage process. If you need more information about scholarships, Miss Jane will, I'm sure, be sending the form in the chat. My favorite subjects: computer science, physics, and maths. What careers? Oh, anything, absolutely anything you can do. Do you know you could even do law, right? I mean, law doesn't have any prerequisites. We have a wonderful ex-student who has, every year he comes back and he gives talks to our lawyers. He did law at Cambridge and now he's working. And I remember he once told me, it's very interesting, in Cambridge, half of the lawyers on his course came from the science stream. You'd think they came from humanities and history, but no, they came from the science stream. So pretty much anything. Physics and maths are so versatile as subjects, and everybody likes maths. So yeah, pretty much anything. I mean, obviously not a doctor, not a vet, not a dentist. But yeah, they open lots and lots of doors. Not biomed engineering, you need biology, not biochemistry, not natural sciences, biological. I mean, there's a few pretty obvious ones that need chemistry or biology. But yeah, you've got lots of options there. What is the maximum rate offered to students? I'm not sure. I think Miss Jane would be able to tell you what is the maximum. I know it's only off the fees, so you would still need to pay the boarding. And as we said earlier, boarding in our sixth form is compulsory. The other thing about, I'm a big fan of boarding. Oh, my kids went boarding when they were 11, and I'm a huge fan of boarding. And one of the other things that's really important is that it helps them transition, and their parents transition from day to university. So it's just that level of independence for parents and the child, to be honest, and learning to solve things by themselves and with their peers. So it's a great transition. And you know what? We're in Manting. That's not that far compared to when they head off to the States or when they head off to the UK. And we have exeats every sort of 2 or 3 weeks. We have very long holidays because we do Saturday mornings. So it's a great stepping stone to university, I think, is boarding. Applications are low 6 at picture of actual forecast grades. Oh, but that's from the registrar. Okay, wait 1 minute. It does, Eunice, yes. So the EPQ does have a lot of self-reflected aspects of their research, and that's why universities like it. So it comes with a log, and a lot of the marks come from how you've reflected on what you've learned and the process that you've had. So basically, what did you intend to do? What happened and why? Why did it change? So a key part of the EPQ is reflections on you as a learner, as a researcher, as an academic. Okay. EPQ question again. I think I maybe answered that. If there are any specific things about the EPQ, please let me know. We had a student last week who was applying for foundation courses in the UK, and she has a B in her EPQ, and she applied to Swansea and for foundation, and Swansea emailed her and said, you can join our undergraduate program because of your EPQ. So her EPQ has just saved her parents a whole year's fees at university. So I think EPQs are great. Will Ktj help students get financial aid? Yeah, so it's not easy to get financial aid for UK universities. Warwick, for example, has just got a new one for economics. There's 2 scholarship programs for Warwick economists and business students. So if they have to write an essay, yes, we will definitely help them. Lots and lots of our students apply for Kazana scholarships and especially CIMB scholarships. And we offer to do references for those as well. Miss Susan, do you want to talk about US funding and help there?
Okay. So for most international students attending public state universities, there's very little scholarship or funding that comes from those state universities. The state universities are set up primarily for students who live in that state. If they apply to private universities, depending on their academic ability, their merit, other activities that they've been involved in, for strong international students, they can be well funded. And I always have what I call my big money schools. And these are the schools that typically give international students who have strong academic backgrounds very, very good scholarships that make it less expensive than even state schools for state residents in the United States.
Okay, great. So the other thing, we were talking about this the other day, Miss Susan and I, about Japan. If you've got good grades, Japan is brilliant for their scholarships and their English language programs. You obviously have to like Japanese culture and be willing to sort of immerse yourself and learn Japanese. But there are other options out there. Hong Kong is very good. If you get good grades, you can get some very good scholarships in Hong Kong as well.
Emma, can I add one more thing? Italy has very good university programs through a specific university that I can give you more information about. Not only do they have scholarships, their fees are fairly low, and there are many international options for traveling overseas as part of the 4-year bachelor degree.
Okay, great. So I think, yeah, you answered the question about A-level. So we don't know yet because they haven't finished, but how many applied to the States this year, Miss Susan?
I worked with 28 students applying to the States, 1 applying to Canada, 3 applying to the Netherlands, 3 applying to Hong Kong, and 2 are just finishing up Japanese applications. So we had 28 students.
Yep. Okay. Which is increasing, as I said at the start.
Yeah, and from my conversations with the lower 6, it's going to be 35, 40, maybe 50. But again, we want to make sure that they have the balance. And universities in the States, oftentimes even with scholarships, are far more expensive than the UK. And so I always ask students to make sure that we look at the money and share that with your parents before we move any further, because most parents don't want to donate kidneys or lungs so that their child can go to university.
Yeah. Okay. Do you provide any aptitude tests or counseling for the students who haven't decided? Yeah. So in fact, we were just talking about this earlier for the Form 5s as well. So all of the students in Ktj should have done the Moresby testing, which is very, very detailed. If you arrive in the lower 6 and you're still not sure, then you can access Moresby testing if you haven't done one. So if you're an outside student, you can do Moresby testing. It's very, very detailed. And I think the other thing really is, I mean, there are other ones you can do. Miss Susan and I have been experimenting with them recently, different aptitude tests and things, sort of personality, not aptitude, but personality tests to try and navigate things. But I think one of the things we do is we expose you to so many different clubs and activities and enrichment events that's one way to really work out what you're interested in. We also have a drive with lots of resources in, links to videos, reading lists and things. We've got a great library here. So it's really just about exploring things. I think you need to do a lot more than just take one test to kind of work out where your passions lie. And that's really why we are not an exam factory, and we do all of this other enrichment, because we just want students to make sure when they head off post A-levels, when they leave us, they're pretty sure they're on the right path, that they're doing something that they have a passion in, and it's going to be a good fit.
So for those students who really just don't know what they want to study, then US or Canadian universities are fantastic places to figure that out, because the whole first year their students are doing what's called general education requirements, where they take a little bit in almost every subject, and they get to see what strikes their fancy, what makes them passionate and excited, and who the professors are that they really want to work with. So if they just don't know, there are many universities in the world where you don't have to go in knowing, and you may come up with something completely different after you've taken 1 or 2 classes in an area that you never thought you would.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how students change a lot when they're at university. And what we try to do is really encourage them not to worry too much about what they're going to do after university, because it's so far down the line and the world is changing so quickly that we can't possibly tell, and they don't know what they're going to be like. So you asked about further maths only. That's not possible because of the rate at which they do maths. So basically the further maths students will do 6 modules of maths in their lower 6, and then they will do 6 of the further maths in the upper 6. So it is already an intense pace. Further maths goes very, very quickly. And further maths is definitely not an easy subject, for sure. It is no joke, that subject. But it's one that is very popular in Ktj. We'll have 33, I think I just counted, 33 students will be taking their further maths exam. And that's out of the 120 in our upper 6 at the moment. So you do have to take maths. And if you haven't done add maths and it was on offer, but you didn't take add maths, you're going to find further maths difficult. So if you've taken additional maths at IGCSE, you're going to find your maths easier. The first 3 modules out of the 6 will be relatively easier. But the further maths is going to be a big challenge, I think. Okay. Yeah, China universities. Yep, okay. They have some students. Tsinghua and Peking. So I've just done references for a boy who's applying to Tsinghua and Peking universities. How are Ktj's percentage of fees covered by a set scholarship? Okay. But does this mean that Ktj students who didn't get straight A stand no chance, can they at least gain a partial scholarship? Okay, so Adrian, so I'm not sure what happens if we award the scholarship based on your predicted grades and then they were a lot lower. I think if we've made that commitment just as an ethical point of view, we would stick with it, right? So we've seen some potential in you. So, when we say we're going to do something, we do it. But when we look at your predicted grades, we get the report from your school as well. So your school will be saying how you're doing. And of course, a lot of schools now talk about effort as well in their school reports, as well as attainment. So that's a big factor. As I said earlier, you know, the letter that you write as to why you want to be a scholar is important. And we really enjoy doing the interviews. So in the interview, they're in half-hour slots, and it will be about 25 minutes, and there will be 2 senior members will be interviewing you. And we have a set process. They're very much like Oxbridge interviews in the format that they have. And yeah, and we have an objective way that we kind of rate you as well. So if you fall a little bit below that, that should be okay. But yes, we will be looking at your predicted grades when you apply for your scholarship. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, students can, okay, that was it, 6. May I know which university and what courses did the students apply to? Is that about Miss Susan? So that one's to Miss Susan.
So I've answered that, and I don't have the list handy. So of so I misspoke when I said earlier that there were only 28 students who applied to US. There were 28 students who applied early action or early decision. That was before the November deadline, and add about 10 to 15 more students after that for the January deadline. In that list, each student applied to anywhere from 2 to 8 different universities. So I don't have that list in my head right now. I can share it with you later on if you get a hold of me.
Okay. Let's see. So there's a question. Oh, you've answered that one. Can the student apply for scholarship at the upper 6? No, it's in the lower 6. Only in the lower 6. How many Chinese universities can each student apply to? Good question. How many Chinese universities can each student apply to?
So the total number of universities and or systems that each student can apply to is 10. So if they want UK, that counts as 1 because it's all one application platform. So then if they're applying to 2 in China, that would be 3. So they could still apply to 7 other universities because each Chinese university is a separate application that requires a little bit different in terms of what they have to write and what needs to be sent.
Okay. How many Chinese, wrote on that one. Where are the applications to Singapore universities? We don't have many who apply to Singaporean universities. To be honest, they're very competitive. So not so many to Singaporean universities.
And Singaporean universities also require the SAT. And for many students who haven't already planned to do the SAT, adding the preparation in to do the SAT properly is difficult. And as Emma said, it's very competitive, especially if you are not a Singaporean PR or a Singaporean citizen. So it's quite difficult. Just for another university to add on, that's not a Singapore application. It needs to be their primary focus.
There's an question here from Mercy. How can the student prepare for the scholarship interview? I would say a couple of things. One is just talk to lots of adults and have intelligent conversations with adults about interesting subjects, you know, about politics, the news. Are we going to have war in Russia? What do we think of Boris Johnson? What do we think about voter rights in America? Just things that are in the news, just like engaging intellectual conversations with adults and learning to articulate your thoughts out loud. I think read lots of newspapers, be informed, and just kind of be reflective. I think we're quite nice in the interviews. So I think if you're a little bit shy, we do tend to kind of tease it out, and we'll ask you some nice, easy questions to get you going. And the nice thing about our interviews is that they're quite long. So if it takes you a little bit of time to get warmed up because you're quite nervous, that's fine. We know that with people. It can be quite intimidating. So lots of news reading and interesting conversations with adults. You should be doing that anyway, I think. So Miss Susan, do you prepare students that are going to Germany?
I was just typing the answer to that. If students want to apply to Germany, the entrance exams usually happen in July and August. There's nothing I can do to help prepare for that. They need to register on their own. The biggest preparation students need to do, there's very few courses taught in English. So my recommendation is that students take a year off and study intensive German vocabulary with a native German speaker that has to do with the course that they're going to take, or they'll be absolutely lost. And we don't want them to walk into that experience.
Yeah. I think that's all the questions. Jane, could you spot any other questions we've missed? We've answered about the March intake. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Well, I think Miss Jane put our email addresses in there. I'm Emma Davidson at ktj.edu.my. Miss Susan?
Susan Renaud at ktj.edu.my. Surname is spelled Renaud. It should be French, but my passport's from America, so it's not.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Jane is kindly putting those in there now for us. That's great. Thanks, Jane. So yeah, just email me. And if your child does apply, or if you apply, if you're in the webinar, then I will be meeting you. I love to meet all of our students and their parents and just really make sure that you've got your A-levels that are a good fit. And the other thing is, on Wednesday and Thursday next week, and Wednesday, Thursday the following week, Miss Susan and I and Dr. Glenn and some of the other senior people in KTJ will be meeting all of our Form 5 students and their parents one-to-one in 15-minute slots. So you've been sent an email, and your students have been sent, your children have been sent an email as well, where you can book a slot, and we'll just really kind of discuss what your plans are and what's going to be a good fit for you in terms of educational systems and places, and also subjects as well. And then we've also got an A-level taster day on the 25th of February. So all of our Form 5 students will spend the day pretending to be A-level students, and they'll go and they'll pick lots and lots of different classes to go to, so they can have a tryout. Just saying something to sort of calm your anxiety. When you pick your A-levels, if you decide after week 1 that chemistry is not for you, it's okay, you can change. So the indications that you put down now in March, you're not tied to those, they're not cast in stone. So you can change later if you think you've made a horrible mistake. So just put your best guess, what you think you're going to be enjoying. And if you think you've made a wrong mistake, that's fine. Come and see me when you're in the 6th form, and we can talk about what else you can be doing. We definitely don't want students doing A-levels that they don't enjoy, and they're going to struggle to keep up with for 2 years. And I think that's it. Yeah. So I hope to meet you all on Wednesday and Thursday. Is there any taster lesson for external students? There isn't, I'm afraid. But that's a question. But no, at the minute there isn't. Unfortunately not. Those are just for the internal students. Yeah. But what you can do is we've just made a series of videos on each A-level subject, and they will be on our YouTube channel very soon. I think we're waiting for the drama and the art one, and then they'll all be done. So if your child is interested in A-levels at KTJ and they're not quite sure, what do we do in history, what do we do in geography, then you can look at the videos that have been made by the heads of those departments. So that's a mini taster maybe. Could you expand on the group section? Okay, on the group section of the scholarship, they are given a task to do. We kind of observe how they do the task in a group. And they go for lunch with existing scholars, and they hang out, and they have chats, and Dr. Glenn's there, and I'm there, and Jane's there, and it's just about, do you think you'll be a good fit for us, and do we think that you'll get into the KTJ culture as well? Do we think that you will be happy in our school? And that's important, right? We want students to be here who are happy and want to be here.
So can I just say, I observed the group section of the interview because it's very close to where my office is. And I came out because they were talking, they were excited, there was a lot of energy, and there was a lot of laughter while they were working. So it wasn't stressful for them at all. They really seemed to be enjoying it and enjoying the company of each other, and didn't mind all these adults standing around chatting with other adults or asking students what they were doing. It was a very pleasant thing to see.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope to see you either in the parent consultations or in one-to-ones. If you're an external parent, please book an appointment to come and see me. I'd love to chat to you and your child. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jane, for helping setting this up as well. Look out for the A-level videos. Okay.
Good night.
Stay safe, everybody. Night-night. Stay safe.